And welcome back to a Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono, and back with us is my co-host, Chris. Back again. Welcome back, buddy. It's good to have you here.
Yeah.
So today is our episode. Yeah, well, today's our episode for Waiver Wires. It's a pretty important one as usual, especially as the season goes on. So before we jump into who we think our big waiver wires are, why don't we take a second to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you see all the shorts and episodes that we're going to be dropping the rest of this week and the rest of the season.
Do it, guys.
You're gonna like the way you look.
You're gonna like the way you look. We're gonna fit you up nice. This channel brought to you by Championships brought to you by Champions for Champions.
For Champions. That should be our new slogan.
We really should.
Well, big talk here is waivers here. Waivers. But the important thing we need to talk about first are some injuries because it's end of week 7. Well, technically we're about to go into the Monday Night Football game. Kickoffs any minute now. There has always been injuries in football, but this year, for some reason, it's been a wave every single week. It's coming crashing down on somebody. Yeah. So let's highlight a couple of the big ones here. Number one here, and these are going to affect our waivers big time. Jerome Ford looks like a low-grade high ankle sprain. He had a huge big run for them again. He looks like he's got the explosive capability for this running backfield. I think even when he's fully healthy, they're going to still split with Kareem Hunt and mix Pierre Strong in there. But that being said, it's his backfield to start. Does he lose it because of this? We'll see, but it's a possible 1 to 2, maybe 3 week absence depending upon how he heals here. Knowing that they've already had a bye, there's no bye week to have. So obviously, if Kareem Hunt's available, go grab him. If he's not available, we'll go into who we say waiver wise, what we think about Pierre Strong and these other guys here.
Yep. And then also from the
another Brown.
Deshaun Watson went down with an injury. We knew going into this week that his shoulder was going to be an issue and maybe long term, his ability to throw deep and his ability to kind of stretch the field. Now with this injury, he took a big hit and he stayed down. I don't know if it's more of the shoulder. We'll see. Kind of, he's been listed as day-to-day now, but I would say he's highly doubtful to play next week. And they might be precautious and let him sit out for 2 more weeks before they're letting him play. I mean, in the 2 games that he hasn't played, in the last 2 games, they've beaten the 49ers and beaten the Colts without him. And that defense,
they're playing good with him, though. It wasn't like they were bad, but
yeah, no, they're playing good. They're playing good football because the team is based around playing defense and running the football, and that's why they've been winning games. So,
yeah. We'll talk about Jalen Waddle real quick. He left the game early last night with back injury. It seemed to be he was dealing with spasms and a little uncomfortable pain. He was able to come back in and finish the game most of the fourth quarter there, was able to come back in and rally up around 40 yards on 4 catches. So he's a big piece of this offense, and the only way he sits out is if he's unable to go. So it's day-to-day. Keep an eye on that. Is one you got to watch for because it's going to come down to the wire. It could be game time decision or it could be cleared. It could have just been a back spasm night. So keep an eye on that one. Christian Watson's the big injury here, knee injury. Could be an MCL sprain. Could be any of the other ligament sprains there. More tests to be done at the beginning of this week. And we'll have an update with you for you guys at the end of the week. Let's hit on a couple quick streamable tight ends that we've been giving you guys, and that's Luke Musgrave, Gerald Everett, Dawson Knox. Musgrave has an ankle injury that seems like it could be a little aggravating for him. Gerald Everett has a quad strain. He could still come back for week 9, so he may miss a couple games. He's been pretty effective for the Chargers there, and Dawson Knox is getting surgery on his wrist. They don't have a timetable for that return. I don't know if that's going to be end of season for him or if he'll be back time for playoffs, but that opens the window up for the rookie. And then Bijan Robinson, the biggest question mark of the entire weekend was where's Bijan Robinson? And
I loved it.
Yeah, well, if you played against him, you loved it. Or if you had Tyler Algier in like a flex position because you had nobody else, you loved it. But there was an illness apparently. He wasn't feeling himself. He wasn't feeling good. Right now, the NFL is investigating when he started feeling that way and why they didn't disclose that prior to the game start. But that's nonetheless, if it's just an illness, I'm not too worried about it. If it's something more than that and we want to read too far into it, we can. But until we hear anything official, he should be good to go for this coming week. it
Hey, all
does
you guys that
show.
are Bijan, all you guys that are Bijan believers, and how's your offensive player of the year looking, or offensive rookie of the year looking now? Huh? Just want to say.
All right, let's jump into the waivers here because this is what you guys came to listen to. Like I said before, Kareem Hunt, if he's available, he's a number one guy here, running back wise, because it's on a top running offense, like Chris said, and you're going to want him. But let's talk about his counterpart, Pierre Strong, who is the third man up in that backfield. He came in and had ended up having 8 carries for 25 yards, nothing to write home about, but he's going to have a piece in this offense, most likely in the passing downs because he was coming in on some third down plays and some passing down work in the past. But I think it's going to be more of a Kareem Hunt 60-40 type of split because Hunt just doesn't have the explosiveness he used to have as a young buck. And Pierre Strong and Ford obviously has that. But Kareem Hunt nonetheless is talented. He's going to get the rock.
Yeah, we saw some really strong performances from him last year as a Patriot. And the Bears or the Browns traded for him in the preseason before Kareem Hunt signed there to be a backup. And so I do think that Pierre Strong, I mean, he looked 8 for 25, but you're absolutely right. Kareem Hunt is not going to take the lion's share of the carries there. I can't see him taking an 80% snap share either. So another guy is going to get volume, and especially if PJ Walker is going to be starting the next 2 games, and that defensive plan, they let up a lot of points last week, but they really were a top performing defense in terms of production. And look at the kind of possessions, the plus possessions that they get because of that defense. I would say Pierre Strong is a streamable option. Would I spend a ton of fab on him? No, because he's not going to be playing the rest of the season. They're saying Jerome Ford is a low-grade high ankle sprain, so you're looking at probably 2 weeks that he's going to be out. And is Pierre Strong going to be a viable option as a running back too? No, he's probably going to be more of a flex play. But if you're desperate, you're dealing with some other injuries, like go and get him. But I wouldn't spend anything over like 5% of my fab on him.
Yeah, he's only 4% owned too. Anyway, like I said, Hunt's the guy there. Let's piggyback off the Christian Watson knee injury here because this probably has some bigger impact. If you're a Romeo Doubs owner, which he's over 60% owned, so we're not recommending. Well, we're recommending grab him if he's open for you. He's not a waiver pickup for us this week, but Jaden Reed is because he's only 26% owned. Jaden Reed this past week against Denver, only had 21 yards on 3 catches, but he did get a touchdown. Romeo Doubs, same thing, ended up getting a touchdown. No, it was Romeo Doubs had the contested catch. It wasn't Reed.
No, Reed had the touchdown that deflected off of someone else.
And he just happened to catch it. Yeah. But if we look back at the beginning of the season when Christian Watson was out, both Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed were finding the end zone for that offense. And that offense was clicking better before Watson got here. I think, to me, and I said this before, Chris, while you were gone, I think the Packers have a Christian Watson problem. They're trying to funnel this offense through him, their star receiver, which is great because he's a good athlete. He's a star. He's a little bit of a one-trick pony to me because he just doesn't do it in the route running scheme. He's got the speed, but when they've done that, they've been unsuccessful in all other aspects of the game. And it hasn't helped that Aaron Jones has not been there. But look back when Aaron Jones wasn't there and Watson wasn't there. They had good route runners in Reed and Doubs, and they played the roles they needed to play. It just surprised me a second week in a row.
Well, this is the thing is that their problem is that they're doing that because they can't run the football. And they're really inefficient at running the football. And this is a Denver defense that everyone's been able to run on. Mm-hmm. And you look at what Dylan had. Dylan had an okay game. He had 60 yards rushing, but
Dylan had a great game the week before that too.
But Aaron Jones, you would expect these two guys to be having 100-yard rushing games, and they're just not doing that, and they're not effective. And you look at the 2 wins that they've had, they've been really efficient at running the football, and Jordan Love is being able to be consistent, especially down the red zone when they do get down there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I do think I said this in the beginning of the season that I think that Christian Watson is overhyped based on the 4-week sample size from last year. And you look at those 4 games and he was a monster, but you look at Doubs and you look at Reed, and especially the first 2 weeks of the season when Christian Watson was out, they looked really good. I mean, we said even when Christian Watson came back to pick up Jaden Reed and to stash him at least. And now it looks like he might be getting a bulk of receiving work as being a number 2 receiver, and I think he's worth it.
Well,
He's a guy that, like, if you're struggling at receiver, if you have some injuries and you need a guy, he's a guy you should go pick up.
Well, here's the reason why. Listen to the next 5 opponents. Minnesota, positive. Rams, tough, but can do it. Pittsburgh, positive. Chargers, positive. Detroit Lions, positive. Like, they have a solid, good 4 out of 5 weeks where these wide receivers are going to be flex or wide receiver 2 plays, depending upon. Well, now, there's no bye week next week, this coming week. But that being said, weeks 9, 10, 11, 12, you're going to buys. So
yeah.
I agree. Let's move on. Let's talk about another wide receiver who we mentioned last week as a pickup, as a volume play. And for sure, it was a volume play this week, and it ended up netting him a touchdown too as well, and that's Kendrick Bourne. He's still somehow only 39% owned in sleeper leagues. This guy needs to be owned in all 12-man league teams because he's a flex play at best, but there's no reason a guy who's getting the volume he's getting for the Patriots, he is their best guy. And I know he had a dip after like that hot start to the season. Doesn't mean you should drop a guy like this. Go grab him. I know there's no bye weeks, like I said, but there are injuries and there are issues. He's a good guy that could play in a flex that has wide receiver 2 upside.
I'll say this on the New England Patriots. So like I would agree with you that like I like Kendrick Bourne, but Demario Douglas showed me a lot in that game. He made some fantastic contested catches. He made some great one-handed catches, and he should have had a touchdown towards the end of the game. But if Kendrick Bourne's not available, Demario Douglas is another sneaky guy that if you have some available, if you're in first or second place, and you're looking just to kind of stash some players, he's a guy that I would keep my eye on as being a viable option down the road because he looks good.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about Douglas is Juju coming off his concussion and him just eating into target share or at least snap percentage, and that's the only thing where I think Bourne has got a stronghold on his position on that offense.
Sure.
So
I would agree. Like Bourne is rated over Demario Douglas, but I'm just I'd add him.
I agree.
Stash.
I do agree with you because this offense is going to take an upturn, especially against Buffalo. I can't tell if that was a truly bad loss for Buffalo or an amazing win for the Patriots. But
little both.
Yeah. Nonetheless, let's talk about a couple running backs here, and specifically the Rams running backs. Everybody who went and got Zach Evans, who we were saying, yeah, he's probably your top option, but I'm holding my breath on it because we just don't know what's going to happen. Even Jesse and I talked about our starts and sits. You're starting him, but you don't like it because you just don't know what Sean McVay is going to do. He had a cryptic message in an interview that pretty much slayed it out for everybody
he's going to Sean McVay.
Yeah, he likes Henderson. So Darrell Henderson, 36% owned. Go pick him up. Royce Freeman, 26% owned. You can go pick him up if you're in dire need of running backs here. And these are flex flyer plays here because, again, it could be Zach Evans this week. We just don't know.
I literally was just going to say, watch us to Zach Evans week this week. Everyone goes and picks up the other two. Listen, Royce Freeman looked good.
He looked great.
Darrell Henderson looked good. And I watched the episode from last week, and I chuckled as you said it. Because I really thought it was funny. I'm like, yeah, you guys are saying like, Zach Evans. I was like, and then when the signings happened on who they're going to bring in, it was like Darrell Henderson. I'm like, oh, Darrell Henderson's going to have a monster game right now.
I know. That's a tough part about doing these waiver episodes, on a Monday night because stuff does happen on Tuesday. But still, we want to get the information out to you. But nonetheless, Chris is right. You never know what they're going to do. It's nice to have a piece of it if you can, if you got a bench spot for one of these guys, and they're flexible plays because they both look good. And that's the one thing about Henderson and Freeman. They've got nothing to lose. They were free agents. They were out there. They're just going to play their asses off because it's their job. They want to make some money. Versus Zach Evans is, he didn't get the usage everybody was expecting. But even if it's tougher to hand the ball off to a guy who's doesn't know the offense as well or doesn't know, Sean McVay's system as well. And on top of that is playing to maybe not lose that position because now you just got what's his name? Kyron Williams was now finally put on IR. So you're gonna have 4 weeks of one of these running backs here, and I would put if I'm a betting man, I would just say, hey, I'd run Hendo and Freeman out there. They're gonna split the backfield. They both look good.
Yeah, how do you rank them?
I like Henderson. I like Henderson, Freeman, Evans in that order, but I could flip-flop Evans and Freeman. Henderson's my number one only because of he knows that McVay system. And he's quick and easy to put in there, and he was effective. Like, why not ride the hot hand?
Man, imagine if Cam Akers was still there.
Yep. I do want to mention one other running back here, and this is more of a wait and see play, but Devin Singletary, he's 20% owned. I know there's some people out there that are, truthers for Dameon Pierce that, hey, he's still going to get the lion's share. He's still going to be there. It's been interesting to see snap percentage the past 2 weeks. 1 week it was all Pierce. Next week it was 50-50. They're coming off a bye against a very favorable matchup for running backs. So this is the one you want to grab Singletary now. And if he ends up having 50-50 and he plays well, you got him. If he doesn't, he's a droppable player after that anyway. But this Carolina defense is weak against the run. This is the one that you're going to want to see Pierce and Singletary's snap percentages and usage here.
Yeah, and I think that another guy that just that got taken off of IR today, Chase Edmonds, I think could have some impact in Tampa Bay. So Rachaad White has not looked good, and I think that they're looking to get someone else involved there. That's another guy that's not highly owned at all. I think he's under 10%. That you can probably go out and snag. I know there's a lot of injuries. Like I'm in one of those right now. Like I have 2 viable running backs right now. But there are guys out there, and Josh Kelly is another ad now that
Austin Eckler's
actually back.
The guy plays well when Austin.
The guy only produces when Austin Eckler is in the
needs a breather.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great but he's a guy. Probably ownership was up on him early in the season when Eckler was hurt. And then he got dropped, but he's another guy. If he's available in the league, you should go pick him up as a guy that you can flex.
Yeah, the note on Edmonds I like too, but if you don't be mistaken that you think you're going to be grabbing Edmonds because he's going to have some a big grip in the passing game. If you look back to what his usage was the first 2 weeks, it was only in the rushing game. Rachaad White's been a great pass catching back the past 2 seasons. I think he's got a good position as that pass catching back, but he's just not been effective on the ground. And Chase Edmonds was effective actually with a couple of the rushes in the first 2 weeks he had. He ripped off some good ones. He's small, he's athletic and agile, is a little bit more shifty than White. So I do like that. I think it's a stash play that I think he'll end up getting himself some more opportunities in that backfield. But if you're grabbing him because you're like, oh, he's a great PPR pickup, he may not get the pass catching like he did on the teams he used to play for, because White is actually a pretty darn good pass catcher.
Yeah.
Let's catch up with 2 tight ends that I want to talk about here, because we did talk about 3 that were injured. This affects one of them. Dalton Kincaid is only 41% owned, and I know we talk about a 40% threshold here. He's right over the top of that, but go grab him. He's going to have a piece of this passing offense. This offense, his defense is giving up points, and this offense is not looking like it's clicking on all cylinders right now. He was 8 for 8 this past week. He was able to get, I believe, 75 yards on that, no touchdown, but that's perfect tight end 2 numbers that you want, because there's only a couple tight end 1s out there in this league. And the other one is Taysom Hill. This guy is still going to be running the ball here and there. He is being used way more as a traditional tight end with Juwan Johnson out, and he's actually been very good and effective. I mean, this past week, Taysom Hill was 4 for 5 for 50 yards. He had 5 rushes for 18 yards and ran 1 in for a touchdown when Kamara couldn't get it in after a couple tries. So he's the Wildcat is very difficult with the New Orleans defense and Taysom Hill to actually protect against. And they show it. It's kind of like the tush push for the Eagles. Like, they're very good at giving Taysom Hill the ball inside the 5, and he gets it in every time. So he's just one that I think is worth having on your team if you're a tight end streamer, or you're trying to roster 2 tight ends. You can't go wrong with him. He's only 13% owned on top of that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And then, let me ask you, in terms of quarterbacks, going into this week, give me 2 streaming options that you like.
I'll give you 3 that I like. Now, I'm giving 3. I'll give you 3, even though it's not a bye week coming here, so there's not that big of an impact like you're going to have to. There are some bad matchups. So this is always a good opportunity. I'll give you 3. I wanted to say 4. But I just don't like Minshew against New Orleans. I know Minshew played really, really well against Cleveland, but I don't know if I'm going to trust that flash in the pan against New Orleans. But I will say Derek Carr against Indy, I do like. That's a good option there. Kenny Pickett against Jacksonville. Now, these guys aren't going to blow up and give you 30-point games, but they can get you to that 20-point mark you're looking for based on these matchups. And then Tyson Bagent against the Chargers. He looked pretty good for Chicago last week, and Chicago's offense was actually moving the ball pretty well. And they're going to be facing a Chargers defense that is struggling week after week, and especially against the pass because they just can't seem to cover everybody when they're out there. So look to him because it looks like he's going to be in there for one more week with Justin Fields being doubtful this coming week. Could be a week after that, but those are my 3 streamers there.
I like those 4. But I don't like your take on Minshew. I think Minshew is a great streaming option this week. Minshew might be worth a pickup, and just having as a backup quarterback. I mean, we know he's going to be the quarterback for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. The team has been potent on the ground. They have a good defense, and they got weapons on the outside. Josh Downs is finally starting to come together. He had a great performance this past week. Minshew, and especially this week, I know the Saints defense is the Saints defense, but the Saints defense is also the Saints defense on the road, and which they are on the road, even though it's an indoor game. They're playing in Indianapolis. I think Minshew is a great streaming option this week. And like I said, I think he's a guy that if you pick up and have as a backup during a bye week, you should go and do that. I'd also like to mention that if Kyler Murray is available in your league, you should go and pick him up. In the next 3 weeks, he's going to be back, and he is going to be a viable option at the starting quarterback position. The Arizona offense has been, I think, we're getting towards the midway point of the season, and the Arizona team in general has been the surprise of the season. I know that their record is not that great, but their offense looks good. We thought they were going to be trash. Like, people were picking them to go winless, to score 10 points a game. The defense is going to get just throttled. The defense is a good defense, and the offense is, without Connor, they're struggling a bit, but that they have weapons there. They're young and they're short, but they got weapons there.
Yeah. I like that too. I love Kyler Murray. He was always been a big fan of mine, and I drafted him a while ago. By the way,
been a big fan of yours? Oh my God!
Sorry, I've been a big fan of his. Sorry, I got distracted. Kirk Cousins already threw a pick in this game, so they're in the red zone on the Niners now, though. Anyway, that's our big ones there. I do want to touch on the Minshew thing. Like, he did play Baltimore earlier on. Minshew had a tough matchup against them. He had 1 touchdown. He threw for about almost 250, so it was a pretty solid game for him. No picks, but that's more how I see him against New Orleans. I see maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns. 200-something yards, and it may give you a top 15 option, which is a streamable option. I get that, but he could also fall into 1 touchdown mode there, and all of a sudden you got yourself a top 20 guy instead. But I don't disagree with you. I just don't like the matchup.
That's why I like him actually more as a long-term pickup than I do as a streaming option this week. But I do like him as a long-term pickup because this offense is good enough. The defense is good enough to keep him in games. And look what he just did to the number 1 defense in football.
Well, I also don't I think the defense is good, but the defense is not the best because at this point, they're giving up points. And they were giving up points to a backup quarterback in P.J. Walker. I mean, a lot of them were field goals. Your kicker decided to just kick 50 every single time they had it. But
I want to thank you for picking up the guy I was going to pick up and left me this guy who just dropped 22 points.
If you had picked up Carlson, I would have probably picked him up, to be honest with you, because I was just said, I'm going to roll with the Browns this week.
Season. It is. You're making the bad decisions. I'm making the good decisions.
Well, no, it's not that I'm making bad decisions. I'm just making the decision I'm making is not the best decision. Listen, I'm not making bad decisions. The plays I'm making are good plays. They're just not they're not week winning plays. Like, I'm not making the week winning decision. I'm just making okay, he's going to get me 8 points. Great. I got 8 points, not 22 points from a kicker that I could have made.
Love to see it.
Anyway,
kicker in the defense of the story.
Touchdown to Jordan Addison. 7-0 Minnesota.
I'd love to see it too.
Yeah. That's my win over Paul. That's what I need.
Sorry, Paul.
Anyway, I don't want to bore you guys with our league. We have a hyper competitive league. In the off season, we'll break it down too. We really wanted to do that in this preseason. We just didn't have time, but we'll break down our league and the makeup and what we do, because I think it's unique and could lend some good ideas to your guys' leagues out there. And we'd love to hear how you guys manage different things to maybe see if we can better our league. But that being said, thanks for tuning in. As usual, we're going to put the chapters down below so you can watch. We'll hit you up with shorts over the next couple days, along with our Thursday night preview episode that will drop Thursday morning. So don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification button so you get the updates when we get that. And then this weekend, Chris will be solo for the Friday episode, or possibly with Jesse again, or Nick, past guest host that we had here, and he'll be breaking down the weekend slate for you. So as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.